Hey, welcome back to Adult Brain for an experimental live read of the book Ragnarok, The Age of Fire and Gravel. This was written by Ignatius Donnelly, published in 1883. Really interesting. We're getting into the fun part here, the legends. I mean, of course, all the other stuff was good for the scientists and stuff like that, but now we get into the fun legends. So this is chapter 3 and 4 of part 3, the legends, which is Legends of the Coming of the Comet and Ragnarok. So this is like rough and raw. This is like how the sausage is made. So we are gonna probably run into some pronunciation challenges, especially with these Norse names. So this will be like edited as I go. So hopefully pretty smooth, but we'll see how it goes. So I'm gonna share screen. Please smash the like button and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. And you can see the other parts if you go to our live tab. It'll just have what I've been doing in this book every couple, like 2 chapters at a time, kind of like every 30, 45 minutes type thing a day. So I'm going to share the screen before I forget. My entire screen, the recording device, and I got to flip back to the beginning of this chapter here. Whoops. That's funny. Why is that not showing? Let me see if this changes here. Okay, there we go. So yeah, this should be fun. This is where it gets interesting. Hopefully this recording level stays high enough. Check. And here we go. Chapter 3. Legends of the Coming of the Comet. We turn now to the legends of mankind. I shall try to divide them so as to represent in their order the several stages of the great event. This, of course, will be difficult to do, for the same legend may detail several different parts of the same common story, and hence there may be more or less repetition. They will more or less overlap each other. And first, I shall present 1 or 2 legends that most clearly represent the first coming of the monster, the dragon, the serpent, the wolf, the dog, the evil one, the comet. The second Hindu avatar gives the following description of the rapid advance of some dreadful object out of space and its tremendous fall upon the earth. Pause there for the cat to get her position all comfortable. So you expand this out a little bit, and its tremendous fall upon the earth. I will try not to snort and cough, but that is difficult as this seems to loosen up all the nostril and the nose and all that stuff. By the power of God, there issued from the essence of Brahma a being shaped like a boar, white and exceeding small. This being, in the space of an hour, grew to the size of an elephant of the largest size and remained in the air. That is to say, it was an atmospheric, not a terrestrial creature. Brahma was astonished on beholding this figure, and discovered, by the force of internal penetration, that it could be nothing but the power of the omnipotent which had assumed a body and become visible. He now felt that God is in all. I'm going to redo that here. He now felt that God is all in all, and all is from him, and all in him. And said to Marchichi, how's the record level doing? Check. And said to Marichi and his sons, the attendant genie, a wonderful animal has emanated from my essence. At first of the smallest size, it has in 1 hour increased to this enormous bulk, and without doubt it is a portion of the almighty power. Brahma, an earthly king, was at first frightened by the terrible spectacle in the air, and there claimed Brahma. Check. Brahma, an earthly king, was at first frightened by this terrible spectacle in the air, and then claimed that he had produced it himself. They were engaged in this conversation when that vara, or boar form, suddenly uttered a sound like the loudest thunder, and the echo reverberated and shook all the quarters of the universe. This is the same terrible noise which, as I have already shown, would necessarily result from the carbureted hydrogen of the comet exploding in our atmosphere. The legend continues. But still, under this dreadful awe of heaven, a certain wonderful divine confidence secretly animated the hearts of Brahma, Marichi, and the other genii, who immediately began praising and thanksgiving. That Vara, boar form, figure, that check. That Vara, boar form figure, hearing, hearing, that Vara, boar form figure, hearing the power of the Vedas and mantras from their mouths, again made a loud noise and became a dreadful spectacle, shaking the full flowing mane which hung down his neck on both sides, and erecting the humid hairs of his body. He proudly displayed his two most exceedingly white tusks. Then, rolling about his wine-colored, red eyes, and erecting his tail, he descended from the region of the air and plunged head foremost into the water. The whole body of water was convulsed by the motion and began to rise in waves, while the guardian spirit of the sea, being terrified, began to tremble for his domain and cry for mercy. How fully does this legend accord with the description of comets given by astronomers? The horrid hair, the mane, the animal-like head. Compare it with Mr. Lockyer's account of Coggia's comet, as seen through Newell's large reflecting excuse me. Compare it with check. Compare it with Mr. Lockyer's account of Coggia's comet as seen through Newell's large refracting telescope at Ferndean, Gateshead, in which he described as having a head like a fan-shaped projection of light with ear-like appendages at each side, which sympathetically complemented each other at every change either of form or luminosity. We turn to the legends of another race. The Zendavesta of the ancient Persians described a period of great innocence and happiness on earth. This represents doubtless the delightful climate of the tertiary period already referred to, when endless summer extended to the poles. There was a man-bull who resided on an elevated region which the deity had assigned him. This was probably a line of kings or a nation whose symbol was the bull, as we see in Bel or Baal, with the bull's horns dwelling in some elevated mountainous region. At last, an evil one, denominated Ahriman, corrupted the world after having dared to visit heaven. That is, he appeared first in the high heavens. He descended upon the earth and assumed the form of a serpent. That is to say, a serpent-like comet struck the earth. The man-bull was poisoned by his venom and died in consequence of it. Meanwhile, Ahriman threw the whole universe into confusion, chaos. For that enemy of good mingled himself with everything, appeared everywhere, and sought to do mischief above and below. We shall find all through these legends allusions to the poisonous and deadly gases brought to the earth by the comet. We have already seen that the gases which are proved to be associated with comets are fatal to life. And this, be it remembered, is not guesswork, but the revelation of the spectroscope. The traditions of the ancient Britons tell us of an ancient time when the profligacy of mankind had provoked the Great Supreme to send a pestilential profligate, a pestilential wind upon the earth. The profligacy of mankind had provoked the Great Supreme to send a pestilential wind upon the earth. A pure poison descended. Every blast was death. At this time, the patriarch, distinguished for his integrity, was shut up, together with his select company, in the enclosure with the strong door. The cave? Here the just ones were safe from injury. Presently a tempest of fire arose. It split the earth asunder to the great deep. The lake Leon burst its bounds, and the waves of the sea lifted themselves on high ground, the borders of Britain. The lake Leon. The lake Leon burst its bounds, and the waves of the sea lifted themselves on high around the borders of Britain. The rain poured down from heaven, and the waters covered the earth. Here we have the whole story told briefly, but with the regular sequence of events. 1, the poisonous gases. 2, the people seek shelter in the caves. 3, the earth takes fire. 4, the earth is cleft open, the fjords are made, and the trap rocks burst forth. 5, the rains pour down. 6, there is a season of floods. When we turn to the Greek legends, as recorded by one of their most ancient writers, Hesiod, we find the coming of the comet clearly depicted. We shall see here and in many other legends reference to the fact that there was more than one monster in the sky. This is in accordance with what we now know to be true of comets. They often appear in pairs or even triplets. Within the past year, we have seen Biela's comet divide and form 2 separate comets, pursuing their course side by side. When the Great Comet of 1811 appeared, another of almost equal magnitude followed it. Seneca informs us that Ephorus, a Greek writer of the 4th century before Christ, had recorded the singular fact of a comet's separation into 2 parts. This statement was deemed incredible by the Roman philosopher. More recent observations of similar phenomena leave no room to question the historian's veracity. The Chinese annals record the appearance of 3 comets, 1 large and 2 smaller ones at the same time, in the year 896 of our era. They traveled together for 3 days. The little ones disappeared first, and then the large one. And again, on June 27th, AD 416, 2 comets appeared in the constellation Hercules and pursued nearly the same path. If mere proximity to the Earth served to split Biela's comet into 2 fragments, why might not a comet which came near enough to strike the Earth be broken into several separate forms? So that there is nothing improbable in Hesiod's description of 2 or 3 aerial monsters appearing at one or about so that there check. So that there is nothing improbable in Hesiod's description of 2 or 3 aerial monsters appearing at or about the same time, or of one being the apparent offspring of the other, since a large comet may, like Biela's, have broken in 2 before the eyes of the people. Hesiod tells us that the earth united with night to do a terrible deed, by which the heavens were much wronged. The earth prepared a large sickle of white iron with jagged teeth and gave it to her son Kronos, and stationed him in ambush. And when heaven came, Kronos, his son, grasped at him, and with his huge sickle, long and jagged-toothed, cruelly wounded him. Was this jagged white check. You know what? I wish I could move my picture over there so it would block the. I wonder if there's a way to do that. So it would block the recording instead of the PDF. Check. Was this jagged white sickle-shaped object a comet? And night bear also hateful destiny and black fate and death and nemesis. And Hesiod tells us that she, probably Night, brought forth another monster, irresistible, no wise like to mortal man or immortal gods in a hollow cavern, the divine, stubborn-hearted Echidna, half nymph, with dark eyes and fair cheeks, and half, on the other hand, a serpent, huge and terrible and vast, speckled and flesh-devouring, neath caves of sacred earth. With her they say that Typhon associated in love a terrible and lawless ravisher for the dark-eyed maid. But she, Echidna, bare chimera, breathing but she, resistless fire, fierce and huge. There's a picture too right there. Comet of 1862. Aspect of the head of the comet at 9 in the evening, the 23rd August and the 24th August at the same hour. So look at how it changed from one day to the next, I suppose. Where was I? Echidna. But she, I think, right? Dark-eyed maid. For the dark-eyed maid. Yeah. Check. But she, Echidna, bare chimera, breathing resistless fire, fierce and huge, fleet-footed as well as strong. This monster had 3 heads, one indeed of a grim-visaged lion, one of a goat, and another of a serpent, a fierce dragon. In front a lion, a dragon behind, in the midst of goat. In front of check. In front a lion, a dragon behind, and in the midst a goat, breathing forth the dread strength of burning fire. Her Pegasus slew, and brave Bellerophon. The astronomical works show that weird check. The astronomical works show what weird and fantastic and goblin-like shapes the comets assume under the telescope. Look at the representation on page 137 from Gimon's work of the appearance of the comet of 1862, giving the changes which took place in 24 hours. There it is right there again. Check. If we'll If we will imagine one of these monsters close to the earth, we can readily suppose that the excited people looking at the dreadful spectacle, as the Hindu legend calls it, saw it taking the shapes of serpents, dragons, birds, and wolves. And Hesiod proceeds to tell us something more about this fiery serpent-like monster. But when Jove had driven the Titans out from heaven, huge Earth bare her youngest born son, Typhon, by the embrace of Tartarus, Hell, through golden Aphrodite, Venus, whose hands indeed are apt for deeds on the score of strength, and untiring the feet of the strong god. Excuse me. Check. And from his shoulders there were 100 heads of a serpent, a fierce dragon playing with dusky tongues of fire and smoke. And from the eyes of his wondrous heads fire sparkled beneath the brows, whilst from all his heads fire was gleaming, as he looked keenly. And all his terrible heads, too, were voices sending forth every kind of voice ineffable. For one while, indeed they would utter sounds so as for the gods to understand, and at another time again the voice of a loud bellowing bull, untamable in force and proud in utterance. At another time again that of a lion possessing a daring spirit. At another time again they would sound like two whelps, wondrous to hear, and at another he would hiss, and the lofty mountains resounded. And in sooth, and didn't soothe, then and didn't soothe, then would there have been done a deed past remedy. And didn't soothe, then would there have been done a deed past remedy, and he, even he, would have reigned over mortals and immortals, unless I wot, the sire of gods and men had quickly observed him. Harshly then he thundered, and heavily and terribly the earth re-echoed around, and the broad heaven above, and the sea and streams of ocean, and the abysses of earth. But beneath his immortal feet, was that vast? I should probably have a better quality of PDF here. I think that says vast Olympus, right? It must be. But beneath his immortal feet, vast Olympus trembled as the king uprose, and earth groaned beneath. And the heat from both caught the dark-colored sea, both of the thunder and the lightning, and fire from the monster, the heat arising from the thunderstorms, winds, and burning lightning. And all earth and heaven and sea were boiling, and huge billows roared around the shores about and around, beneath the violence of the gods. And unallied quaking arose. Pluto trembled, monarch over the dead beneath, and the Titans under Tartarus, standing about Kronos, trembled also, on account of the unceasing tumult and dreadful contention. But Jove, when in truth he had raised high his wrath, and had taken his arms, his thunder and lightning and smoking bolt, leaped up and smote him from Olympus, and scorched all around the wondrous heads of the terrible monster. But when at length he had quelled it, after having smitten it with blows, the monster fell down, lamed, and huge earth groaned. But the flame from the lightning-blasted monster flashed forth in the mountain hollows, hidden and ragged. Hidden and rugged. But the flame from the lightning-blasted monster flashed forth in the mountain hollows, hidden and rugged, when he was first stricken. Check. Lightning-blasted monster flashed forth in the mountain hollows, hidden, and much was the vast earth burnt and melted by the boundless vapor, like as pewter heated by the art of youths, and by the well-bored melting pit, or iron, which is the hardest of metals, subdued in the depths of the mountain by blazing fire, melts in the sacred earth beneath the hands of Vulcan. So I wot was earth melted in the glare of burning fire. Then, troubled in spirit, he hurled him into wide Tartarus. Here we have a very faithful and accurate narrative of the coming of the comet. Born of night, a monster appears, a serpent huge, terrible, speckled, flesh-devouring. With her is another comet, Typhon. They beget the chimera that breathes resistless fire, fierce, huge, swift. And Typhon, associated with both of these, is the most dreadful monster of all, born of hell and sensual sin, a serpent, a fierce dragon, many-headed, with dusky tongues and fire gleaming, sending forth dreadful and appalling noises, while mountains and fields rock with earthquakes. Chaos has come. The earth, the sea boils. There is unceasing tumult and contention, and in the midst the monster, wounded and broken up, falls upon the earth. The earth groans under his weight, and there he blazes and burns for a time in the mountain fastnesses and desert places, melting the earth with boundless vapor and glaring fire. We will find legend after legend about this Typhon. He runs through the mythologies of different nations, and as to his size and his terrible power, they all agree. He was no earth creature. He moved in the air. He reached the skies. According to Pindar, the head of Typhon reached to the stars. His eyes darted fire. His hands extended from the east to the west. Terrible serpents were twined about the middle of his body, and 100 snakes took the place of fingers on his hands. Between him and the gods there was a dreadful war. Jupiter finally killed him with a flash of lightning, and buried him under Mount Etna. And there, smoking and burning, his great throes and writhings, we are told, still shake the earth and threaten mankind. And with pale lips men say, tomorrow, perchance today. Pale lips. Check, check, check. And with pale lips men say, tomorrow, perchance today, Enceladus may rise. Chapter 4, Ragnarok. There is in the legends of the Scandinavians a marvelous record of the coming of the comet. It has been repeated generation after generation, translated into all languages, commented on, criticized, but never understood. It has been regarded as a wild, unmeaning rhapsody of words, as a it has been check. It has been regarded as a wild, unmeaning rhapsody of words or as a premonition of some future Earth catastrophe. But look at it. The very name is significant. According to Professor Anderson's etymology of the word, it means the darkness of the gods, from Regen, gods, and Roker, darkness. But it may more properly be derived from the Icelandic, Danish, and Swedish regna, a rain, and rok, smoke or dust. And it may mean the rain of dust, for the clay came first as dust. It is described in some Indian legends as ashes. First, there is, as in the tradition of the Druids, page 135 ante, the story of an age of crime. The Vala looks upon the world, and as the elder Edda tells us, there saw she wade in the heavy streams men, foul murderers, and perjurers, and them whose others' wives, and them whose and them who others' wives seduce to sin, brothers slay brothers, sisters, children shed each other's blood. Hard is the world, sensual sin grows huge. There are sword ages, axe ages, shields are cleft in twain, storm ages, murder ages, till the world falls dead, and men no longer spare or pity one another. The world has ripened for destruction, and Ragnarok, the darkness of the gods or the rain of dust and ashes, comes to complete the work. The whole story is told with the utmost detail, and we shall see that it agrees in almost every particular with what reason assures us must have happened. There are 3 winters, or years, during which the great wars raged over the world. Mankind has reached a climax of wickedness. Doubtless it is, as now, highly civilized in some regions, while still barbarian in others. Then happens that which will seem a great miracle, that the wolf devours the sun, and this will seem a great loss. That is, the comet strikes the sun or approaches so close to it that it seems to do so. The other wolf devours the moon, and this too will cause great mischief. We have seen that the comets often come in couples or triplets. The stars shall be hurled from heaven. This refers to the blazing debris of the comet falling to the earth. Then it shall come to pass that the earth will shake so violently that trees will be torn up by the roots, the mountains will topple down, and all bonds and fetters will be broken and snapped. Chaos has come again. How closely does all this agree with Hesiod's description of the shaking earth and the universal conflict of nature? The Fenris wolf gets loose. This, we shall see, is the name of one of the comets. The sea rushes over the earth, for the Midgard serpent writhes in giant rage and seeks to gain the land. The Midgard serpent is the name of another comet. It strives to reach the earth. Its proximity disturbs the oceans. And then follows an inexplicable piece of mythology. Check the pronunciation of that word there. I just want to make sure now I'm losing it. It's Naglfar. That makes sense. So mythology. Naglfar. Check. The ship that is called Naglfar also becomes loose. It is made of the nails of dead men. Wherefore it is worth warning that a man dies. Wherefore it is. Check. Wherefore it is worth warning that when a man dies with unpaired nails, he supplies a large amount of materials for the building of this ship, which both gods and men wish may be furnished as late as possible. But in this flood, Naglfar gets afloat. The giant Hrym is its steersman. The Fenris wolf advances with wide open mouth. The upper jaw reaches to heaven and the lower jaw is on the earth. That is to say, the comet extends from the earth to the sun. He would open it still wider had he had room. He would open it still wider had he room. That is to say, the space between the sun and the earth is not great enough. The tail of the comet reaches even beyond the earth. Fire flashes from his eyes and nostrils. A recent writer says, when bright comets happen to come very near to the sun, when bright comets happen to come very near to the sun and are subjected to close observation under the advantages which the fine telescopes of the present day afford, a series of remarkable changes is found to take place in their luminous configuration. First, jets of bright light start out from the nucleus and move through the fainter haze of the coma toward the sun. And then these jets are turned backward round the edge of the coma and streamed from behind. Let's redo that. Right? Check. And then these jets are turned backward around the edge of the coma and stream from it behind the comet until they are fashioned into a tail. The Midgard serpent vomits forth venom, defiling all the air and the sea. He is very terrible and places himself side by side with the wolf. The two comets come The two comets move together, like Biela's two fragments, and they give out poison, the carbureted hydrogen gas revealed by the spectroscope. In the midst of this clash and din, the heavens are rent in twain, and the sons of Muspelheim. Let me just double check that pronunciation. Muspelheim, where I'm sure I double checked this one. Maybe not. Moose. I thought it was Moosebell. Oh, that's Moosebell. Muspelheim. In the midst of this clash and Check. In the midst of this clash and din, the heavens are rent in twain, and the sons of Muspelheim come riding through the opening. Muspelheim, according to Professor Anderson, means the day of judgment. Muspel signifies an abode of fire peopled by fiends. So that this passage means that the heavens are split open, or appear to be, by the great shining comet or comets striking the earth. It is a world of fire. It is the day of judgment. Surt rides first, and before him and after him flames burning fire. Surt is a demon associated with the comet. He is the same as the destructive god of the Egyptian mythology, Set, who destroys the sun. It may mean the blazing nucleus of the comet. He has a very good sword and shines brighter than the sun. As they ride over Bifrost, it breaks to pieces, as he has before been. Let me just redo that whole thing quickly. I don't like the way it started. He has a very good sword. Check. Oh, let me just redo that. Here, let's see. He has a very good sword that shines brighter than the sun. As they ride over Bifrost, it breaks to pieces, as has before been stated. Bifrost, we shall have reason to see hereafter, was a prolongation of land westward from Europe, which connected the British Islands with the island home of the gods, or the godlike race of men. There are geological proofs that such a land once existed. A writer, Thomas Butler Gunn, in a recent number of an English publication says, Tennyson's Voyage of Meldoun is a magnificent allegorical expansion of this idea, and the laureate has also finally commemorated the old belief in the country of Lioness, extending beyond the bounds of Cornwall, a land of old upheaven. Check. A land of old upheaven from the abyss by fire to sink into the abyss again, where fragments of forgotten peoples dwelt, and the long mountains ended in a coast of ever-shifting sands, and far away the phantom circle of a moaning sea. Cornishmen of the last generation used to tell stories of strange household relics picked up at the very low tides, nay, even of the quaint habitations seen fathoms deep in the water. There are those who believe that these Scandinavian Eddas came in the first instance from Druidical Britain sources. The Edda may be interpreted to mean that the comet strikes the planet west of Europe and crushes down some land in that quarter called the Bridge of Bifrost. Then follows a mighty battle between the gods and the comet. It can have, of course, but one termination. So west of Europe would be in the mid-Atlantic ridge, no? But one termination. Check. But it will recur again and again in the legends of different nations. It was necessary that the gods, the protectors of mankind, should struggle to defend them against these strange and terrible enemies. But their very helplessness and their deaths show how immense was the calamity which had befallen the world. The Edda continues, the sons of Muspel direct their course to the plain which is called Vigrid. Thither repair also the Fenris wolf and the Midgard serpent. Both the comets have fallen on the earth. To this place have also come Loki, the evil genius of the Norse mythology, and Hrym, and with him all the frost giants. In Loki's company are the friends of Hel, the goddess of death. The sons of Muspel have had their efficient bands alone by themselves. The sons of Muspel have then their efficient bands alone by themselves. The plain Vigrid is 100 miles, rasts on each side. That is to say, all these evil forces, the comets, the fire, the devil, and death, have taken possession of the great plain, the heart of the civilized land. The scene is located in this spot because probably it was from this spot the legends were afterward dispersed to all the world. It is necessary for the defenders of mankind to rouse themselves. There is no time to be lost, and accordingly we learn. While these things are happening, Heimdall, he was the guardian of the Bifrost Bridge, stands up, blows with all his might into the Gjallarhorn, and awakens all the gods, who thereupon hold council. That is the Gjallar. 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 Excuse me. All stuffed up. Check. Odin rides to Mimir's well to ask advice of Mimir for himself and his folk. Then quivers the ash of Yggdrasil, and all things of heaven and earth tremble. The ash Yggdrasil is the tree of life, the tree of the ancient tree worship. Excuse me, I'm having troubles with my nasal passage. The tree which stands on the top of the pyramid in the island birthplace of the Aztec race, the tree referred to in the Hindu legends. the Asas, the godlike men, and the Einherjes, Einherjes, the Asas, the Asas, the Asas, the godlike men, and the Einherjes, the heroes, arm themselves and speed forth to the battlefield. Odin rides first, with his golden helmet, resplendent Birney. I did warn that this was going to be a little difficult with the pronunciations. Odin rides first with his golden helmet, resplendent Birney, and his spear Gungar. Should I check that just to see? I'd be curious if that's different than Gungar. I have my assistant ready for me. He knows I'm reading this book. Gungnir. That's supposed to be N-I-R. Gungnir. Gungnir. Okay, I was pretty much right. Gungnir. Okay, so Odin rides first. Whoops. Go back to here. Gungnir. Odin rides first, with his golden helmet, resplendent Birney, and his spear Gungnir. He advances against the Fenris wolf, the first Comet. Thor stands by his side, but can give him no assistance, for he has his hands full in his struggle with the Midgard serpent, the second Comet. Frey encounters Surt, and heavy blows are So let's do that again. Frey's in there. Frey encounters Surt, and heavy blows are exchanged. Ere Frey falls, the cause of his death is that he has not that good sword which he gave to Skirnir. Even the dog Garm, another Comet, that was bound before the... Let me try that again. Near Nipa Cave. Even the dog Garm, another Comet, that was bound before the Nipa Cave gets loose. He is the greatest plague. He contends with Tyr, and they kill each other. Thor gets great renown by slaying the Midgard serpent, but retreats only 9 paces when he falls to the earth dead, poisoned by the venom that the serpent blows upon him. He has breathed the carbureted hydrogen gas. The wolf swallows Odin, and thus causes his death, but Vidar immediately turns and rushes at the wolf, placing 1 foot on his nether jaw. On this foot he has the shoe for which materials have been gathering through all ages, namely the strips of leather which men cut off from the toes and heels of shoes. Wherefore he wishes to render assistance to the asses, must cast these strips away. This last paragraph, like the concerning... Check. This last paragraph, like that concerning the ship Naglfar, is probably the interpolation of some later age. The narrative continues. With one hand, Vidar seizes the upper jaw of the wolf and thus rends asunder his mouth. Thus the wolf perishes. Loki fights with Heimdall, and they kill each other. Thereupon Surt flings fire over the earth and burns up all the world. This narrative is from the Younger Edda. The Elder Edda is to the same purpose, but there are more allusions to the effect of the catastrophe on the earth. The eagle screams, and with pale beak tears corpses. Mountains dash together. Heroes go the way to hell, and heaven is rent in twain. All men abandon their homesteads. When the warder of Midgard in wrath slays the serpent, the sun grows dark, the earth sinks into the sea. The bright stars from heaven vanish. Fire rages, heat blazes, and high flames play gains to... The bright stars from heaven vanish. Fire rages, heat blazes, and high flames play against heaven itself. And what followed then? ice and cold and winter. For although these things come first in the narrative of the Edda, yet we are told that before these things, to wit, the cold winters, there occurred the wickedness of the world, and the wolves and the serpent made their appearance, so that the events transpired in the order in which I have given them. First, there is a winter called the Fimbul winter, the mighty, the great, the iron winter. When snow drives from all quarters, the frosts are so severe, the winds so keen, there is no joy in the sun. There are 3 such winters in succession without any intervening summer. Here we have the glacial period which followed the drift. Here we have check. Here we have the glacial period which followed the drift. 3 years of incessant wind and snow and intense cold. The Elder Edda says, speaking of the Fenris wolf, it feeds on the bodies of men when they die. The seats of the gods it stains with red blood. This probably refers to the iron-stained red clay cast down by the comet over a large part of the earth. The seats of the gods means the home of the godlike race, which was doubtless covered, like Europe and America, with red clay. Excuse me. The waters which ran from it must have been the color of blood. The sunshine blackens in the summers thereafter, and the weather grows bad. Got about 4 pages left here. Check. In the Younger Edda, page 57, we are given a still more check. In the Younger Edda, page 57, we are given a still more precise description of the Ice Age. Replied Har, explaining that as soon as the streams that are called Elivogs, the rivers from under ice, had come so far that the venomous yeast, the clay, which flowed from them hardened, as does that runs from the fire, then it turned as into ice. And when this ice stopped and flowed no more, then gathered over it the drizzling rain that arose from the venom, the clay, and froze into rime, ice, and one layer of ice was laid upon another clear in the Gunninganap, I used to know how to pronounce that word, so I better just double check it. Ungagap. It doesn't look like it's spelled the same way. Gunninganap. I thought it was Gunninganap. Ginung. Ginun. Gi. Jin. G. Jinun. Jinunagap. 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 Gi. Oh, Gi. Ginun. Ginung. Ginungagap. Ginungagap. That's going to be tough. Ginungagap. Into rhyme ice. Ginungagap. 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 And one layer of ice was laid upon another clear into the Ginungagap. Ginungagap, we're told, was the name applied in the 11th century by the Northmen to the ocean between Greenland and Vinland, or America. It doubtless meant originally the whole of the Atlantic Ocean. The clay, when it first fell, was probably full of chemical elements which rendered it, and the waters which filtered through it, unfit for human use. Clay waters are, to this day, the worst in the world. Then said Jafnar, all the part of Ginnungagap that turns to the North Atlantic, was filled with thick and heavy ice and rime, and everywhere within were drizzling rains and gusts. But the south part of the Ginnungagap was lighted up by the glowing sparks that flew out of Muspelheim. Muspellum, Muspellum, Muspellum. But the south part of the Gunungagap, Gunungagap. But the south part of the Gunungagap was lighted up by the glowing sparks that flew out of Muspellum, 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 Muspellum. But the south part of the Gunungagap was lighted up by the glowing sparks that flew out of Muspellum. The ice and rime to the north represent the age of ice and snow. Muspellum was the torrid country of the south over which the clouds could not yet form in consequence of the heat, Africa. But it cannot last forever. The clouds disappear, the floods find their way back to the ocean, nature begins to decorate once more the scarred and crushed face of the world. But where is the human race? The younger Edda tells us. During the conflagration caused by Surt's fire, a woman by the name of Leif and a man named Lifthracer lie concealed in Hodmimer's hold, or forest. Lie concealed. Lifthracer. I gotta redo that one. Lifthracer. Leafthracer. 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 Lie concealed in Hodmimer's hold, or forest. Sorry, I just got to redo that. During the conflagration caused by Surt's fire, a woman by the name of Leif and a man named Lifthracer lie concealed. Check. Leaf. Leafthracer. Leaf. So they've got Leaf and Lif here. So my natural inclination is to do Leaf, but then I started doing Lif. Now I'm confused. So Leaf. During the conflagration caused by Surt's fire, a woman by the name of Leif and a man named Leifthracer lie concealed in Hodmimer's hold, or forest. The dew of the dawn serves them for food, and so great a race shall spring from them, that their descendants shall soon spread over the whole earth. The elder Edda says, Leif and Leifthracer will lie hid in Hodmimer's holt. The morning dew they have for food. From them are the races descended. Holt is a grove, or forest, or hold. It was probably a cave. We shall see that nearly all the legends refer to the caves in which mankind escaped from... Excuse my language. Sorry. We shall see that... Interesting. All these things talk about caves, and there's caves all over. We're finding out now. We shall see that nearly all the legends refer to the caves in which mankind escaped from destruction. This statement, from them are the races descended, shows that this is not prophecy, but history. It refers to the past, not to the future. It describes not a day of judgment to come, but one that has already fallen on the human family. Two others of the godlike race also escaped in some way not indicated. Vidar and Vale are their names. They too had probably taken refuge in some cavern. Neither the sea nor Surt's fire had harmed them, and they dwell in the plains of Ida, where Asgard was before. Thither came also the sons of Thor, Mod, and Magna, and they have Mjolnir. Then come Balder and Hoder from Hel. Mod and Magna are children of Thor. They belong to the godlike race. They too have escaped. Mjolnir is Thor's hammer. Balder is the sun. He has returned from the abode of death to which the comet consigned him. Hoder is the night. All this means that the fragments and remnants of humanity resembled on the plain of Ida. Check. All this means that the fragments and remnants of humanity reassemble on the plain of Ida, the plain of Vigrid, where the battle was fought. They possess the works of the old civilization represented by Thor's hammer, and the day and night once more return after the midnight blackness. And the day. Let me check. And the day and night once more return after the long midnight blackness. Then the Vela looks again upon a renewed and rejuvenated world. She sees arise the second time from the sea, the earth completely green, the cascades fall, the eagle soars from lofty mounts, pursues its prey. It is once more the glorious, the sun-lighted world, the world of flashing seas, dancing streams, and green leaves, with the eagle high above it all, batting with sunny check. Batting the sunny ceiling of the globe with his dark wings, while the wild cataracts leap in glory. What history, what poetry, what beauty, what inestimable pictures of an infinite past have lain hidden away in these sagas. The despised heritage of all the blue-eyed, light-haired races of the world. Rome and Greece cannot parallel this marvelous story. The gods convene on Ida's plains and talk of the powerful Midgard serpent. They call to mind the Fenris wolf and the ancient runes of the mighty Odin. The gods convene on... I'm going to redo that. Just redo that quickly because I messed up the very end of it, which is usually the case. It's the last one. The gods convene on Ida's plain and talk of the powerful Midgard serpent. They call to mind the Fenris wolf and the ancient runes of the mighty Odin. What else can mankind think of or dream of or talk of for the next 1,000 years but this awful, this unparalleled calamity through which the race has passed? A long, subsequent, but most ancient and cultivated people whose memory has, for us, almost faded from the earth, will thereafter embalm the great drama in legends, myths, prayers, poems, and sagas, fragments of which are found today dispersed through all literatures in all lands. Some of them, as we shall see, having found their way even into the very Bible, referred alike of Jew and Christian. The Edda continues. Then again, the wonderful golden tablets are found in the grass. In Time's morning, the leader of the gods and Odin's race possessed them. And what a find was that! This poor remnant of humanity discovers the golden tablets of the former civilization. Doubtless the inscribed tablets by which the art of writing survived to the race. For what would tablets be without inscriptions? For they talk of the ancient runes of mighty Odin, that is, of the runic letters, the alphabetical writing. And we shall see hereafter that this view is confirmed from other sources. There follows a happy age. The fields unsown yield their growth. All ills cease. Balder comes. Hoder and Balder, those heavenly gods, dwell together in Odin's halls. The great catastrophe is past. Man is saved. The world is once more fair. The sun shines again in heaven. Night and day follow each other in endless revolution around the happy globe. Ragnarok is past. All right, so I'll do this, keep doing this till this book is done, probably. Tomorrow, chapter 5, the conflagration of Phaeton. And what else? Other legends of the conflagration. So we'll get into all that, and then the last chapter is conclusion. So not chapter, but the part. So thanks for listening, watching. Smash that like, subscribe, all that stuff, and yeah, give us feedback. We appreciate it. Check out all our books on anywhere, Audible, Spotify, here, and YouTube. Help us out. Thanks.